Detached dwellings are easy to make compliant with the Foresight design system. This dwelling, which is both 2-storey and 1.5 story, is more challenging than the average detached dwelling. We input the details of the project. We will use the partial fill method of construction. It is detached. There's no flat roof and the insulation is above the floor slab. Usually dwellings like this have timber joists. ACDs are no longer sufficient if the new fee standard is to be achieved. We need to use the robust or enhanced details. The project is 2 and 1.5 story with the insulation and air barrier moving from the eave to the ridge, so this option is taken. It is detached and the dwelling has not got a basement and is not an apartment, so therefore all other dwellings is chosen. The user simply inputs the values and chooses the next part of the dwelling to be measured. The first floor dimensions need to be taken. The inputs are saved and used in the SAP calculation. The next stage to be measured is the flat ceiling. There is another roof section to be measured and it's 1.5 stories. The insulation and air barrier is from the eave to the ridge in this particular design. We have more construction details. There are 4 exposed elevations, making compliance more difficult. The designer inputs the dimensions of the windows, doors, roof lights and hatches. Modern designs with a lot of glass can affect compliance and can cause overheating. We have collected the dimensions required by SAP and the thermal bridge calculator. Let's now design the part L1A specification. Before we start into the design process, let us look at the thermal bridge. As you can see, it is less than 0.03. The recommended Y factor is 0.05 when designing to the 2013 regulations. Let's go back to the first part of the specification to be designed, the floor. When designing a part L1A specification using the Foresight system, the user chooses a performance level to build to, in this case the 2013 regulations. The designer chooses the structural materials, insulation materials, and the software works out the recommended depth of insulation. The U value is calculated to BR433 and is used by SAP to calculate the performance of the dwelling. The next section to be designed is the wall. The 2013 standard is chosen. The structural material and insulation material is chosen, and the software automatically calculates the U value. There is no flat ceiling in this design. It is locked and the user simply clicks on save and the user is moved to the next part of the process to be designed. Because the air barrier is from the eave to the ridge, a sloping ceiling needs to be designed. The performance level is chosen, centers and the insulation material, and click on save. Flat roof does not need to be designed on this particular project. The windows. The designer chooses the 2013 standard. 2 choices will be presented. The designer should choose the 1.4 U value for the windows with detached design. With the door, 1.0 U value should be taken. And with roof lights, a 1.4 U value should be taken. Thermal bridge is very good and we have discussed this earlier. Air permeability. The user chooses the 2013 standard and the software will give 2 options. It is our advice that the designer chooses the 5 air exchanges. Ventilation. With the air tightness chosen, we can use natural ventilation. Lighting should always be 100% energy efficient. Stoves as a secondary heating source can be considered if the dwelling is non-compliant with the DER in the 2013 regulations. In most detached dwellings, it will not be required if designing to the 2013 standard, but if designing to the fee or extreme fabric design, it should be considered. Solar panels as a secondary heating source can be considered if the dwelling is non-compliant with the DER in the 2013 regulations. In most detached dwellings, it will not be required if designing to the 2013 standard, but if designing to the fee or extreme fabric design, they should be considered. Hot water storage. Generally, with this size of a dwelling, a storage tank needs to be designed. The user inputs the number of occupants if solar panels are being used, and the software calculates the size in litres. The depth of the factory insulated is determined by the performance level chosen and is used in the SAP calculation. Water usage. Reduction in water usage helps with the code for sustainable homes. Boilers. All our boilers have an efficiency of at least 90%. We're using an oil condensing boiler on this particular project. Heat control is now becoming a very important part of Part L1A design, and we are using a delayed start thermostat and programmer and TVR on this particular project. All the design decisions have been made. Now let's see if they are compliant with the 2013 regulations. We have compliance with the DFE and non-compliance with the DER to the 2013 regulations. In most detached dwellings, the fabric design will be good, and if there is non-compliance, it will be in the DER. And that can be resolved by introducing solar panels to the design. So let's go back to the design process and introduce solar. We choose the 2013 standard. We choose the pitch of the roof, the number of occupants, and the orientation and type of panel, and the software will work out the area of the panel. Click on save. We also need to redesign the hot water tank. So we change to include a solar panel and click on save. And let's see what the result is. Yes, we now have compliance with DER. We provide design options for the fee standard and for the extreme or passive standard for detached dwellings, because secondary heating systems such as stoves and solar can be introduced, and so can heat recovery systems, because they can work effectively in the size of a dwelling. The fee and extreme fabric design option encourages designers to get more credits for the code for sustainable homes and design more efficient detached dwellings.